notecarry.com, who's going to talk to us about how to score a perfect 10 with notes. Now, Bob, you're an owner financing expert and just an all-around great guy and great investor. You've helped a lot of real estate investors across the country really capitalize on owner finance deals. So we're excited to have you here. You're a first-timer here to Note C.A.M.P, so I'm going to shut up and let you take it away. How's that sound?
I appreciate it, Scott, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I've been a follower of yours for years, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on your Note C.A.M.P. So today we're going to talk about a perfect 10 with notes, and I want to kind of share with you some of the things we've been doing, the latest way that we're investing, but also just kind of educate people about the why notes are better than most other investments. And really, a real estate investor, if you're an agent, you don't sell houses, you educate people about whether they should buy or sell or what they should sell for. And if you're an investor, you're educating people why your deal is better than the other deals that they're going to get. So a little bit about me. I was a engineering career. I worked at Texas Instruments, and then we were purchased by Raytheon back in 2000. And actually, we were bought by Raytheon in 97. And then I quit in 2002. I just walked in, hung up a $100,000 a year job, and walked away. And I started a real estate company on a bar napkin. And basically, in 3.5 years, we grew our team to the #1 producing team in a city of 1 million people, Tucson, Arizona. And since we started our own brokerage, my wife and I and our team has sold 4,000 homes. And I've written some books along the way. I actually have another book coming out. That's why it says 6 instead of 5. That book is actually going to be out by the end of this month. It's called No Bank Needed, and it's all about seller financing. So that one, be watching for that, and I'll send a link out to when it gets published. And then I have a weekly radio show that I started back in 2012. It's called Home Solutions. It is on a AM station on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock on the conservative talk radio station. And it is just a gold mine for listeners that call and want to invest with me. And I don't advertise money. I can't advertise money. I don't have a securities license. But what I can do is talk about the last deal that I've done. And I do that all the time. And people, and especially my mother, who's 84 years old, buys notes with me. And I have all these people that call and say, hey, I want to be your mom. I want to do what she does and have her lifestyle. So it's pretty cool. And then I was involved with the Craig Proctor program in real estate, and I coached for Craig for 5 years. And I'm actually out at the Note Investor Summit in Irvine, California, speaking today and tomorrow. I actually had to rearrange my presentation this morning because I was supposed to be speaking there right now. And you might know, out of a 2-day event, they put me right on. But I also have another presentation this afternoon. So there'll be two here and one on the web today if I have a voice left. I do a lot of stuff. This was a very complicated tax year this year. We touched 42 addresses with notes last year, and either buying, selling, fixing, flipping. Sometimes we did it twice. We financed the initial lender that bought the property to flip, and then we ended up carrying the end user buyer on a note that we purchased from the seller. And creative financing is something I specialize in. And somebody doesn't know how to get out of something, my brain just doesn't shut off until I figured out a way to help them get out of the bad situation that they're in. So my goal with this presentation is to just change the way you think about real estate. Most people have a preconceived notion. When you tell them you're a real estate investor, everybody immediately goes to the landlord, tenant, and toilet picture in their head. And that's something that most people don't understand, that they can be a bank. And there is a reason why banks have their name on the tallest buildings in the world. So the one thing I just want to share with you is the most expensive thing that you can own is a closed mind. So, and this is something, if you get somebody that is really objecting hard to whatever you're trying to share with them, just say, well, if the most expensive thing you can own is a closed mind, are you so closed-minded you won't even listen to another person's view? And most people, I mean, calling them closed-minded is like calling them a bigot. And it wakes them up, and it's like, whoa, I'm sorry. And then they let me continue instead of just trying to shut me down. But the other thing I want you to be aware of is your perception is real. What you believe is what's real. It might as well be real. So I always tell people that they have a 6-inch problem and it's between their ears. And your brain, whatever you believe in your head, is basically what your actions are going to reflect. So if you don't change the way you believe or look at things, you're never going to change your outcome. So when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And that was Dr. Wayne Dyer, one of my favorite authors. So we've all heard the saying, go big or go home, right? Well, I just want to share with you some things. Is bigger really better? So in 2011, in the heart of the REO market, my wife and I sold 641 homes in 365 days. We about killed ourselves doing it. Last year, as I said, we did 42 notes on homes. We actually made more money take home to the bank net than we did the year that we did 641. So we were able to take off 2 months. I went to Europe on a 3-week trip with Walter Wolford and Quincy Long of Quest IRA. I went to Alaska with them for a couple of weeks, and in December, I went down to Machu Picchu in Peru with Quincy. And so we've been traveling the world. I took 2 months off. It's the most time I've ever taken off in my life to go on vacation, and I had my biggest year ever. So bigger is not better. Dimes and nickels. Nickels are bigger, right? Dimes are worth twice as much. And what I found is better. So don't go big, go better, right? So how to score a perfect 10 with notes. First of all, let's talk about the baby boomers. So between 1946 and 1964, 6,000 baby boomers were born every single day. There are 80 million baby boomers in 19 years. And in 2011, the leading edge of those baby boomers started to turn 65 years old. So 2018 is now the 8th year of this generation turning 65. Every day, 6,000 people, 6,000 people, 6,000 people. And actually, I've heard it said that it's closer to 10,000 people, but I always like to err on the side of being conservative. So these people are aging, and when they retire, they basically have 3 investment choices. Do I want to buy a rental home? Do I want to put my money in the bank? Or do I want to invest in the stock market? And I'm going to explain each of those, and this is what most people believe. I mean, they don't know that they can be the bank. All they know about the bank is I can put my money in the bank. So traditional investors hold their real estate as rental properties, and most that I know, including myself, are very, very tired of tenants and toilets. And that's just a disgusting picture, but it sums up being a rental property owner. And basically, if you ever approach a rental owner, the one question that you can ask them that just brings it all to light is, aren't you tired of cleaning other people's dirt? And what if I could show you a way that you can make more money and never have a tenant again? I mean, that is gold right there. And because you definitely have their interest. And if you think about it, the people who have their property advertised on Craigslist or Facebook for rent, first question, how much money are they making on that property right now? And the answer is none, because it's vacant. And then the second question, do you think that the last tenant did a really good job of cleaning the property up and giving it back to them in the same condition that they received it? And the answer to that almost every time is going to be heck no. So these people had to give up a couple of weekends, if not months, to go and put the house back together so that it's in a condition to be rented out again. And deep down inside, they really, really don't want to start this cycle all over again. So this is an opportunity to catch them at this low point, this emotional low on the roller coaster, and just bring up this, what if you can make more money and never have another tenant? I'm just telling you, it works extremely well. In a market that has very, very low inventory, landlords are an awesome resource. So now let's talk about putting your money in the bank. Banks are paying 0.2%, 0.2. That's $1.67 a month for every 10 bucks invested. So to summarize that, people don't really pay attention to interest rates, and what they care about is what it'll spend. So is one Starbucks every 3 months a good use of $10,000. If you're talking to retirees and they're married, you say, oh, well, there's two of you, so you either have to share or each one of you gets a Starbucks every 6 months. That's not a very good use of $10,000. This is actually a bank statement I got from one of my clients that showed they had $200,000 in the bank, and the bank was paying them $34 a month in interest. They invested in a couple of notes with me, and basically at 7% interest, their check a month was $1,320, $1,320 instead of $34. So this is very, very easy to show people that there is a better way. But remember that retirees are very, very concerned about security. They can't work anymore. What they have is all they have. So you need to make sure that you put them in a very, very secure position where the market would have to, just really be annihilated before they would have any risk. And I'm going to share with you in a little bit how I actually structure my notes, and that way the retirees are very well protected. So now let's talk about investing in the stock market. So with this massive 80 million population, and by the way, about 4 million baby boomers have died, so that's 76 million people left. We are in the 8th year of a 19-year generation, so we're barely, not even a third of the way through it. But what happens when they stop working and start retiring? Well, they stop investing, and instead of putting money in, they're now starting to take money out. So every day, 6,000 to 10,000 people stopping investing and starting to take it out. What do you think the value of the stocks are going to do over the next 10 to 15 years? So I recently attended a financial planning event in Tucson, and there was a senior vice president at Vanguard who was one of the speakers at this event, and he said this about the stock market. Educate your clients, keep in mind the audience is a bunch of financial planners, to expect lower returns going forward, 4 to 5% if they want to invest in U.S. investments, and 4 to 6% if they're investing in global funds. So people have been realizing way better than 10% gains on the stock market. He said, they're not going to like this, but tell them they have 4 other options. They can earn more, spend less, work longer, or die younger. Those are your 4 options. Now, if you look at that list, I don't think anybody's going to like any of those. So earn more, spend less, work longer, die harder. What if we had option 5? Option 5 is, what if we can earn a much better return and get monthly mailbox money with no tenants and toilets and just get paid for the next 30 years? I like that way better than being volatile in the stock market. And, how much do you know about the stock? And this is, again, where we're going to come back to those landlords I told you to go speak with. What could you possibly invest in? What stock could you possibly buy that you know as well as this rental house that you've owned for the last 20 years? I mean, what other investment is there that you understand as well as this? So you would hold the same investment, it's just you're holding it as paper, not as property. Property has liability, paper doesn't. Somebody slips on your sidewalk and you're the owner, you get sued. Somebody slips on the sidewalk and you're the investor, even if they win the lawsuit, they're in a second place lien behind you. You get paid your principal and your interest before anybody else gets paid anything. So this is an awesome thing to remind people of the security that a first position note has. So this is actually from 2014. The approval rate back at just after the recession, things started getting better at the tail end of 11 and all through 12 and 13. But in August of 2014, Ellie Mae reported that 50.3% of all the loans in this country that were applied for were actually granted. 50.3%. So like half the people were getting turned away. So I pulled the elliemae.com, and by the way, you can go out to elliemae.com, sign up for the Origination Insight Report. And if you go to elliemae.com, click on Resources, and then find Origination Insight, this is really handy to show your potential investors so that you can say, look, last month in February, they don't have March numbers out, 70.6% of all the loans in the United States that were applied for were granted. And that gave them 90 days from when they wrote the application to close. So that means almost 30%, almost 1 out of 3 home buyers who applied for a loan could not get a loan. And this is actually from our Tucson MLS. We sold 1,331 properties last month, and only 4 properties were financed by the seller. So there's a tremendous opportunity, and I am just baffled. I've been doing seller financing in Tucson for 6 years. There are 6,000 real estate agents in Tucson. I'm the only person that is financing people. And by the way, I never charge a commission if I'm financing a note. The minute you start buying something for yourself, you have a fiduciary duty as a real estate agent to do what's best for your client. So you can't negotiate for yourself. So anytime the opportunity comes up to buy a note, I go to the person selling their home and I say, hey, we have a problem. I cannot represent you any longer. Would it be okay if we don't have any commission in this deal? And it's kind of funny. I've never had anybody say, no, I want to pay commission. So if you're not a real estate agent, it's actually better because you don't even have to have that conversation. So don't be, put off by, well, I'm not a realtor, I can't do this. It's actually better if you're not a real estate agent. So how does the buyer benefit? We give them home ownership, which means, to me, I want to focus on properties that can be rented for less than can be rented for far more than what the payment would be. And this way, everybody in their life is going to hit a bump in the road. And at some point in time, they're not going to be able to pay all their bills. So by buying the properties that are in the lower part of the market, not in war zones and gangland territory, but in very affordable neighborhoods where rents are higher than the mortgage payment would be, they're going to look out the window and the house across the street would cost them more money to rent than this one does to buy. So I guarantee you I'm going to be paid and they'll find someone else not to pay. Besides making it cheaper than rent, that is real money left in their checkbook at the end of each month. They're going to get a tax refund because their rent is not a tax deductible expense. However, property tax and mortgage interest is. So now all of a sudden they can go change their W-4 and actually get more money back in taxes than they currently receive. So now their paycheck is bigger and they have leftover money from not paying as much in rent. So there's like $200 a month more in their checkbook. To move across the street and rent would mean paying someone else more and having to go back to your employer and change the deductions back so that you don't owe money at the end of the year. And then, of course, the long-term benefits of rental property is the equity, which is paid 2 ways: principal payoff and appreciation. So there's 4 ways that this buyer is being helped by you financing that loan. And we know that buyers who can't get a bank loan will pay a premium. And the reason that we need a premium is someday if you want to sell that note, you may have to pay a discount. Depends on how that note is structured. I've actually gotten compliments, some leaders in the industry. Eddie Speed once told me I was the only person he's ever met in his life that for 6 years has been able to sell a loan at par, at face value with no discount. And that's because of the way that I structure it, which I'm going to share with you later. So these buyers on average would pay $10,000 to $20,000. Now that doesn't mean on a $100,000 house they're going to pay 10 to 20, but on a $600,000 house they're going to pay 6 times more. It's $10,000 to $20,000. I mean, that's what the convenience of being able to get a home now might be worth to someone. And there may be exceptions, but just I wanted to make sure people didn't think that was a percentage. So again, the buyer benefits. We give them a house that nobody else would let them have. We give them a payment for less than they're paying in rent and equity that's theirs, and it comes with all the tax deductions and everything else. So how does the seller benefit? The seller benefits from, first of all, a much faster sale. They're going to get that house sold very quickly because we just showed you there's a lot of people that can't get a loan and nobody else will help them. They're going to make more money than they would if they sold it on a straight out sale on the MLS, and less hassle. I mean, write an offer and close. We closed several deals last year, and actually the title company has asked us not to do it anymore, but we literally wrote the offer on Tuesday and closed on Friday. And when you have fast money, you will attract the best deals and the most motivated people. So this is how you would explain the seller finance process to a newbie. Basically, a normal sale, a bank gives the buyer a loan. The buyer then takes that money and pays it to the seller for the home. And then the seller gets the money and puts it back in the bank, and it completes the circle. So now what if that buyer can't qualify? So the bank won't give them a loan. It stops the whole process, and you don't have a sale unless you make one subtle change. What if we replace the bank with a retiree? The retiree then creates a note for the seller. The seller is offering financing to the buyer, and then the buyer starts making payments to the retiree. Now, why do we run it through the seller? That's because the seller is the originator of that note. It's their home. A person just can't come in and create a loan without a loan license. So the seller has the right to sell their own home. How many notes a year is this seller going to carry? They'll probably do one in their lifetime, but they really don't want to carry. So then they turn around and sell the paper. And then this basically, they hit the one a year, and that's fine within the Dodd-Frank guidelines. So the reason I use the word retiree and not investor is investors are greedy pigs, and they want way too much money. They're going to kill every real estate deal that I have. So when I find a retiree, they're actually comparing me to Wells Fargo instead of to a trailer park or a Church's Chicken or whatever other investment they might have. So this is a way that if the home was worth $100,000, and let's just say that we found a buyer, everything has value. I mean, you wouldn't expect a home on a golf course to be sold for the same price as a home that isn't on the golf course. You wouldn't expect a home with granite countertops to be sold at the same price as a home with Formica. So a home with financing is actually the best amenity you can have in this market, because 1 out of 3 people are being turned away for a loan, but only a handful of people are being financed by the owners, because all the owners need more money. They need their money to buy the next home most of the time. So in this case, if the 100,000 median 30-day MLS price was 100,000, and we were able to sell the home for 115, the minimum down payment that I would want from that buyer would be $15,000, because I don't want them to be upside down. Now that would leave $100,000 to be financed. If you put a $100,000 loan on a $100,000 home, you're not going to have any takers, and that's a very risky proposition for a retired person. So by making a first position loan at 70% and a second position loan for 30%, then now this person is extremely well protected. That property would have to fall $30,000 in value before their first dime would be at risk. And keep in mind that during the recession, 6 million loans went bad. But the number you really need to know is that there are 130 million loans in the United States. So out of all those loans in the United States, less than 5% of them failed during the worst 7 years since the Great Depression. I mean, that's a pretty darn good success rate. And if you look at the percentage of those loans that failed that were FHA loans, 1 out of 3 FHA loans failed. And they had no skin in the game, 3% down. So that's why they now they changed it where you need 3.5% down, big whoop. But when this person is putting 15% of the market value down, the chance of them failing, as the Great Recession just proved to us, is less than 1%. During the recession, the people that had 15% or more down, less than 1% of all the loans failed. So Craig Proctor is a real estate coach that I hired back in 2005 to coach me. And I worked for Craig as a coach for 5 years. And this is basically the most important thing to know about real estate, whether you're a real estate agent or a real estate investor. There's only 2 things that matter. Nobody cares what color jacket you have, what kind of logo your company has. Nobody cares about you, the name of your company, where you live, all they care about is buyers want houses, sellers want buyers. So in this market of short supply everywhere in the United States, there's a shortage of homes. So as I said, the creative person that goes out and finds inventory by finding renters, by going and getting a list from your title company of all the people that bought REO at a very low price and showing them if you sold right now, you'd get slaughtered in income tax gains. However, if you carried it as a note, that would be spread over 30 years. So buyers want houses, sellers want buyers. That's all that matters. So notes are everywhere. There are websites all over the internet where you can go out and buy and sell notes. And this is just a handful of the most prevalent ones. So here's something to know. I mean, with the stock market, at all-time highs and the recent trouble that the stock market's been demonstrating and anticipation that there's more coming, and banks paying 0.2% interest, there's never been such a high demand for notes. So if you can create the note, believe me, it's one of those things, build it and they will come. If you build a note, you will have plenty of buyers for that note. So here's a question though. If you had 10 notes and we're going to sell 5, which 5 would you sell? And would you sell your 5 best ones or your 5 worst ones? And most people know the answer to that question. And that's why this guy is sitting on a pile of money, but on top of a pile of dead bodies. So these are a lot of the non-performing loans that people are finding out have all kinds of hair on them, and they're bad, properties in distressed neighborhoods with a ton of and they just throw them back. And there's such a demand for notes that people are buying them and buying other people's problems. So there are good notes and there are very reputable people out there. You just need to find out who they are. But what I found is, why would I want to buy a note that someone else structured that may be their worst deal they have, when I can create my own notes on my terms? And especially if I can sort of orchestrate the deal and not even be the note creator. The seller of the home is the note creator, but I can have it on terms that meet my criteria. So Albert Einstein came up with this rule of 72, and it's pretty magical. If you just take the number 72 and divide the annual interest rate you're earning on your money into 72, it will tell you how long it takes for your money to double. So a very simple example.
I love the rule of 72, Bob. So phenomenal. I'm so glad you're covering it. I think it's a lost art. No, most people don't talk about it. And I love that you're sharing this.
Okay, thanks, Scott. So if you had $10,000 and you were earning 3% interest, 3 goes into 72 24 times. So it would take you 24 years to make $20,000 and another 24 years to turn that 20 into 40. So how long it takes your money to double. So now if you go to a 6%, 6 goes into 72 12 times. So now your money is doubling every 12 years. And if you're making 12%, 12 goes into 72 every 6 times, or 6 times. So basically every 6 years, your money's doubling. So look at the bottom line, the difference between 3% interest and 12% interest, 40,000 in 48 years, or 2.5 million in 48 years. Most people would choose the higher number. So at 1% interest, your money doubles every 72 years. For those of you who have money in Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, you are getting 0.2%, and it would take 360 years for your money to double. So I don't think you're going to make it before you see that double, and your kids won't make it, and their kids won't make it, and their kids won't make it, and their kids won't make it. So there's a lot of people out there that got spoiled during the recession, and they got 16% interest when the market was scary and nobody was lending money, and they're still stuck on this 16% model. And I meet these investors all the time. Oh, I hear you have deals, well, and you need money. I've got money, and I get 16%. And I just kind of laugh at them, and I say, well, yeah, when's the last time you got that? They go, oh, yeah, well, it's been a while. So I said, really, what you're telling me is that you're making nothing right now. And if you do find somebody that will pay you 16%, they're going to pay you back as fast as they can because you're the most expensive loan they have. And basically, you might make that money for 3 months. So at the end of the year, you had 9 months of undeployed capital and 3 months of deployed capital. You get the bragging rights. You earned 16% for 3 months, but guess what you did for the year? 4%. So your 16 is a joke. It's not 16, it's 4. So if you're waiting for 16% deals, there's probably some other things that you're looking for. Bigfoot, Santa Claus, unicorn, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So let's look at the calendar. Let's see, January's gone, February's gone, March is gone. You already lost a quarter of this year. We're already in the first week of April. So even if you make a 12% yield, you lost the first 3 months. So even if you could deploy your money right now and get it working, you would end the year at 9%. You've already lost a few days of April, so it'd be less than 9%. So this is where people sometimes get all stuck on a number and they're not using common sense. So 9%. So let's see what that costs you having undeployed money. This is a little chart. Don't get overwhelmed by the numbers. I'm going to just show you the very bottom of the chart. So on $100,000, what if it took you 3 years to get your money deployed? Well, what you're going to have happen is you're going to miss the final 3 years on this 30-year schedule. And that 3 years of interest at 8% that was undeployed during the times that you didn't have your money working for you, look what it cost you. It cost you $207,000 by not having it deployed at only 8%. What if it was 10%? That cost you $433,000. And if it was 12% undeployed, unbelievable. It cost you almost $1 million, $863,000 by having your money sit for 3 years, and then you deploy it and keep it deployed for the next 27 years. You lost that front end, because keep in mind, when you're earning compound interest, it's compounding on the base number. So especially if you have low balance IRA accounts, if you're not working the heck out of them to get that balance up, every number, every time it doubles, the rule of 72 doubles it, it'll be doubling a bigger number. But if you're sitting there frozen in your tracks waiting for some pie in the sky deal, you're not going to ever make any money, and it's going to cost you a fortune. So here's the bad thing about notes. You know, it kind of makes you lazy. You just get mailbox money and automatic deposits, and you're traveling around Europe and Machu Picchu, and then, you know, you could keep going. I mean, there's enough money coming in to keep the trip ferry, you know, waving the wand and giving you new trips to take. But I logged into my bank account the other day, and I found out that these notes are actually paying us so fast I got lazy, and so did my money. And actually, if you add up all these different accounts, and these are for different trusts and different entities that hold notes, but basically I have $95,000 of undeployed capital that just kind of appeared, that wasn't there, you know, very long ago. And it's just like, wow, I got to keep on this and keep that money working, or else I'm going to be a victim of my own chart that I just showed you. So this is a new investment model that we actually started doing in the last several months. You know, we've been working with a guy, and he has flipped 50 properties. I've got several flippers in Tucson I've been working with for years. But this is the model that we came up with. And don't get put off by the 8.8% interest only. 3-year balloon, 2 points paid up front, 1 point paid at the end. And this is a really good model that I found. You know what? Once your money gets big enough, you want to keep it deployed and keeping that constant payment, because finding the next deal is a job, and every month that goes by you're losing equity, and you're actually going to end up with a lesser return. So with the 2 points up front and the 1 point at the end, it actually ends up being a 10% yield. And I'm going to show you basically what it looks like. So by lending to a fix and flip investor, there's no Dodd-Frank. It's interest only, so the note doesn't appreciate in value like a regular pay cycle would on an amortized loan. It's 3 years straight through that your money just stayed constantly working. You didn't lose any capital in the middle. There's a balloon payment after 36 months. The loan payments are professionally serviced, so all the tax information, the 1099, 1098, all the collection, everything just happens. You just get checks. And the yield is twice what the stock market projection was from the guy at Vanguard. So let's talk about this. Let's say it was $100,000. Well, first of all, I only have to bring 98 because I got 2 points at closing. So now I'm making interest on 100, even though I invested 98. That pays me $733, which is $8,800 a year, $26,400 in interest payments. At the end, I got 2 points at the beginning and another point at the end. So my total profit on this $98,000 investment in 3 years is $29,400. So let's look at my yield. Well, if I got $29,400 on a $98,000 investment, it's exactly 30% yield. Well, I happen to have it for 3 years. That makes a 10% a year average. on my money, and I didn't have to scramble to find deals in the middle, and I didn't lose any payments in the middle. So this is the equivalent of funding fix and flip loans at 12%, but every time the money comes back, you lose a month, and you end up the year with 2 months lost, so you end up with 10%. But this is set it and forget it, where I just have my money deployed. And when I first started investing in notes, I wanted to get discounted seconds because I could build my money quite a bit. I recently sold a lot of my discounted seconds for par or very little discount on them because first I always sell at par. And some of these actually was seconds I was able to sell at par just because they got a 24-month pay history. But this freed up the capital because I got them at a discount. It freed up capital to go invest in first. So this loan basically is summarized: $98,000 invested, $26,400 in payments in the middle, paid back $101 at the end. So you lend $98,000, you get $26,400, and you get back $101. I mean, that's a pretty easy to understand investment. And a lot of the retirees who have been telling me no for years, because all my loans were 30-year loans to investor or to owner occupants, now all of a sudden they're saying, hey, I love this deal. Do you have any more? Do you have any more? And literally, I funded one of these on Saturday night, last Saturday, at 10 o'clock at night. I was trying to get out of town, and I posted this note, and I hit the button 10 o'clock Saturday night. At 10:13, I got a couple that is past clients of mine that said, we'd love to do this loan. At 10:46, I got another person, we'd love to do this loan. I mean, the money that's out there right now is just unbelievable. And every day for you people still holding out with the hard money, trying to get your 16%, there are some people who will pay it, desperate people, risky people. But your competitor isn't the investor down the street. Your competitor is mom and pop retiree who can't live on Wells Fargo. So here's the added insurance. The flipper has basically resold this property. He's wrapping this loan. He's selling it for 140 because keep in mind what you finance is the wholesale acquisition price and the wholesale repair cost. So the flipper has none of their own equity in the game. But you can buy houses at the price they can buy them, and you can flip houses or get the work done for the price that their crew can do the work. So this is where their equity comes from, is this house, if they are able to buy it for 85 and spend 15 on repairs, then their cost is 100. You financed 98 and got 2 points off. The market value of that house is probably 125 or so, maybe 130, and they're selling it for 140 with financing. So now that buyer actually puts down $14,000, 10% down of the $40,000 at least. That's a minimum. Now that is where the flipper gets their cash because they have to have eating money, and this is where the flipper actually gets their money is the buyer's down payment. Now they owe you $100,000. You only lent them 98, but look at what the buyer owes to the flipper, $126,000. At a 10% interest rate on a 240-month term, a 20-year term, that makes a payment of $1,215.93. Well, this particular home would rent for $1,300. So we met our criteria of being less than rent. Plus, they're getting mortgage interest deduction, they're getting property tax deduction, they're getting principal that they're paying down, and they're getting all the appreciation that would happen. So let's look at the flipper's profit. Remember, they got the $14,000 down payment for their eating money, but now they have a monthly cash flow spread of the money the buyer paid to them and the money that they're paying to you, $480.60. So if this flipper does a deal like this a week, and actually they're ahead of schedule, it's getting kind of scary how fast they're going. But he's creating this cash flow on every single deal. So let's say if he does 4 a month, he's created almost $2,000 a month of cash flow. And at 50 a year, it would be $24,000 a month of cash flow. So here's the question. This is the added security is, do you think this guy is going to give up his $26,000 equity stake by not paying you and you foreclose and get the house for the $98,000 that you paid? And the answer is no. This guy could get the house back turn around, resell it again, get another down payment, and still make the spread on the money because your money is on this loan for 3 years. So this is a very, very secure way to invest that you always want somebody behind you that's going to take the hit. So, and if you're talking to investors or retirees, see, investor is a bad word. They want too much money. Retirees are comparing you to the bank. So you have to educate them. And the best thing to do is just call out the elephant in the room. I'm sure you're wondering, what if they don't pay you? So if they don't pay you, two things are going to happen. That buyer is going to lose, that buyer is going to lose their $14,000, and the investor is going to lose the $26,000 of equity, because even though you only invested 98, they owe you 100, and their loan is worth 126. So what's the chance that two people are going to lose $40,000 so that you can foreclose on the house? I mean, I don't think that is very likely to happen, especially not in a market where there's tremendous amount of growth. So this is a very interesting way to invest. And if you're tired of the big banks making huge profits on your money, boot the bank and keep the profits yourself. So this is what I've been doing. This is what I've helped a lot of my retired clients and friends and family members do. My mother is 84 years old. She just got back from spending 8 weeks down in Cabo San Lucas. She lives in North Dakota, and for the last several years, she's been going to Cabo since 1996, as a matter of fact. And what enables her to do that used to be the money she made at the bank on her loans. And basically, she was making 4% interest on her money. And when my father passed away in 96, we set up my mom's accounts where not more than $100,000 was invested in any one account, and that was what the FDIC insurance was. And the financial planner at the time said, make sure and just isolate your money, so that way if something happens and the bank fails, and we know that several hundred banks failed during the recession, well, the FDIC insurance is protecting them. Well, now we know that FDIC insurance is extremely underfunded, and for the $13 trillion sitting in banks, there's about 250 or $25 billion worth of insurance. It's a huge mismatch. But so my mother, when the bank rates fell in 2007 to 0.2, her 13 accounts that were paying $4,000 each, that gave her, ironically, $52,000 a year, and there's 52 weeks in a year. So here my mom is living in a paid-off home in North Dakota, and she's making $1,000 a week on her bank interest, plus getting Social Security checks. So she couldn't spend all the money that she was earning. In 2007, the banks lowered their rate from 4% to 0.2%. So now all of a sudden, my mom's 13 accounts started paying her $2,600 a year instead of the $52,000 a year that she was making. So that is where she started investing with me in notes, and just one note at 7% interest on $100,000 pays her $665. The bank on that same amount of money, $100,000, would pay her $16 instead of $665. So after my mom did her first note and she got her first check, she calls me and says, I think they made a mistake. I was like, no, that's the right number. That's what you're supposed to have. And she said, well, do you have any more of these notes? So my mom has been one of my early adapters, funding notes all the way back into the late 2000s, before the recession even hit. So this is why I do a lot of investing in Dallas-Fort Worth. And I live in Tucson. I've got several notes in Tucson and around the country. I actually have notes in 7 different states. And I'm going to share with you real quick one of the criteria that I have for buying out-of-state notes. Actually, 2 criteria. The first is I will only buy a note in a market where I have a very close friend who I trust with boots on the ground in that market. If you have a note and you live in that town and you're going to be behind me in position, I will help you finance that note. But if you don't live there and you find some deal in Dayton, Ohio, or Indianapolis, I'm not interested at all. I want boots on the ground. I want skin in the game. That's the only way that I invest in deals that I don't make myself. So this is why I like the Dallas-Fort Worth area. First of all, if you just go back to the basics, real estate is a component of supply and demand. So basically, if there's a high demand for something and a low supply, which is exactly what we have right now in the market, causes prices to rise. So I want to be invested in the fastest growing market in the country. Dallas-Fort Worth last year had the #1 spot for population growth, 399,734. So almost 400,000 people moved to Texas last year. So that brought the state population up to 28,304,000. So Dallas-Fort Worth has 3 of the top 50 cities in the United States. It's Dallas, Fort Worth, and Arlington. So if you look at the total of a Hispanic population, 2.4 million in Dallas, and then the Plano Irving metropolitan area, and then Arlington and Fort Worth. I mean, it's just a tremendous amount, 2.4 million Hispanic population. The reason I bring up Hispanic population, I don't advertise in Spanish, but about 99.9% of the people that I finance are Hispanic construction workers. And I'll tell you, these people are pure gold. I don't think many people would argue that the Hispanic culture has the strongest family unit in this country. And basically, it's not just their house. It's grandma and grandpa's house. It's mom and dad's house. It's their children's house and their wife's house. So not making that house payment would mean that 3 to 4 generations typically are going to be ejected onto the street. I think that that would be the absolute last payment that would be made if there was a money shortage. Last payment not to be made. So that is why this number is important, is this is my target market. Guess what? Most of these construction workers are self-employed business owners. They own a sheetrock company. They own a plywood or a framing company, a electrical contracting company. And so how do I target them? How do I find these buyers? I advertise in the construction corridor where all the roofing supply stores are, and the plumbing supply store, and the electrical supply store, paint supply stores. If you're not putting signs in Home Depot and Lowe's on the weekend, you're missing a tremendous opportunity. And by the way, city jurisdictions can't take down those signs because it's on private property. And usually those stores are so busy that they'll probably take them down within a day or two. But how many thousands of eyes laid eyes on your sign while they were there? So this is another reason. Dallas, out of the top 100 fastest growing counties in the United States, DFW had 9 out of 100 in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And then the city itself, or Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area itself, gained 393 people every single day of the year. So think about that from a supply and demand standpoint. If you're buying homes in a Rust Belt destination, which has very cheap houses for a reason, next year there won't be as many people living there. And the year after that, there will be even less and even less. What is the value of your asset? When there's more supply and less demand, your asset's going to fall in value. When you're in a market like that's going crazy like this, and you want to see some projection numbers, Dallas-Fort Worth right now has a total population of 7.9 million people. In the next 3 years, they are expected to cross 9.2 million people. So they're anticipating 1.5 million people coming to DFW area in the next 3 years. That's a tremendous mismatch. The builders cannot keep up. So the value of the notes that I have, the collateral that backs them, is going to be a lot higher every year just because of the demand for the property. When there's that kind of new growth, guess what happens to rents? Rents go higher too. So now my payment looks even better because it was less than rent when I started. Now rents are even higher. So this is a very, very good way. And with the current model that we're using with the 3-year in and out, you're not tying your money up for an extended period of time. And maybe in 3 years, there's a better deal, a higher interest rate if rates continue to climb. So this is just an example of a property that we funded in Mesquite, Texas. So Mesquite's on the eastern side of Dallas. And this is the neighborhood. And basically, if you look at the Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, the median value of the neighborhood comes in right around 120, 122, depending upon which site you go to. Here's Redfin. And of course, none of these sites know anything about the home itself. They just take the average sale price for the area, divide it by the number of square feet of the home, and that's how they come up with the value. And we all know that that's not how people buy homes, and it takes into account nothing about the condition, the amenities. You know, does it have granite or formica? Is it a 1980s house, or has it been fully remodeled with stainless and architectural gray and, you know, all the stuff that people are buying today? So here's the thing I look for in the neighborhood is how many homes are selling for more than this house. So this house is 120. That is what the median 120, 121 value is. Of course, a newly remodeled, totally fixed up house is going to sell for a lot higher than the median Zillow price or Trulia or Realtor.com price. But I look at just the way appraisers look. Is this the most expensive house in the neighborhood? If it is, I don't want to buy it. And the answer is it's not. So this was a good investment for us. So now here's the question, and then we'll open it up for questions. I've got a few more slides. But there's a buyer, a seller, and an investor in every deal. Who comes first? And normally in a traditional sale, the investor is actually a bank. So you have a buyer and a seller. Well, in most cases, the seller lists the property, and then you find the buyer to come buy that property, and then the buyer goes and gets pre-qualified with the bank, and that's where the investor comes in. So when you're doing seller financing, it really doesn't matter. I'll just tell you the best way to attract sellers is to have buyers that pay the highest price. So I haven't met a seller yet that doesn't want more than their house is worth. So when I have a buyer that is predisposed to pay a higher than MLS value price, that doesn't mean you're overcharging for the home. That means you're in a market that is undersupplied and you're offering financing. That demand is the same as demand for the last sheet of plywood before a hurricane or a can of orange juice when there's been a big freeze in Florida, right? So now all of a sudden I have buyers that will pay $10,000 to $20,000 more. How many sellers can I get? And the answer is all of them. So in a short supply market, I have supply coming out my ears because I offer them value by getting more for their home than anyone else could get. But it's not always about the money. In this market, a good question to ask the seller is, when your house sells, where are you going to move? Because there's a short supply out there. What's the chance that a buyer comes in, writes you an offer, tells you how much they want to pay, tells you all the stuff they want you to fix, tells you the day they want you to move out? What's the chance you're going to find another house in that little 2-week window because you've got to go get financing on your home? So even if they give you a 6-week close, you've got maybe 2 weeks to find your dream home. I don't think it's going to happen. So this is the benefit of me buying your home, is you pick the day. You tell me what day on the calendar you want to move, and we'll just close that day. I mean, nobody else is offering that. And now, what if it's 3 months, 4 months, a year from now? I don't care. So now you're in charge. You know, we are in a seller's market. So why are you letting the buyer make all the rules? So the answer is the deal has to come first. And then you find the money. Because the people, especially retirees and investors who are doing due diligence, how do you do due diligence on a property you haven't found yet? You don't even know the address. How do you do due diligence on a buyer you haven't identified? You don't even know who they are, where they work, why they can't get a bank loan, what they do for a living, how much they have in their bank, in the savings account. So this is the profit formula. Basically, it takes a deal, which is a buyer and a seller and a house. It takes money to make a profit. So this is kind of the pictorial of that. You have a deal pillar, you have a money pillar, and you have your profit. So basically, if the deal goes away, the money gets 0.2 at Wells Fargo. Same picture, if the money goes away, the deal can't close. So you have no profit. So the deal stayed, profit went away. So a profit requires both deals and money. And this is something that I just want to point out. Almost every person that comes to me and says, Bob, I don't know how you find so much money. I just can't find money. It's because you, Mr. Investor, are being a greedy pig. You're trying to take all of the money for yourself. Once you find a money partner, you want to keep that machine oiled where they don't want to invest with anybody but you. And if you just remember this little diagram, a deal without money can't close, right? So find your money partner. Why do you want to work so hard? Why do you want to screw the money partner you find? And now you have to start from scratch and go try to find a different one. Why don't you just treat that guy better than anybody else? And it'll just keep rolling and rolling and rolling around. And the money keeps repeating itself. You just made a repeatable process. So if you want to get connected, I have something called a Note Carry Network. And this is a conference that I put on once a year in October. This year it's going to be the 11th and 12th of October. This will be the 10th time the Note Business Builder has been put on. Every year I donate 100% of the proceeds to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Last year it actually took us over $500,000 that we've donated from this conference just by sharing what I do. So if you go back to notebusinessbuilder.com and you'd like to come, I'd love to have you there. As a matter of fact, Scott, I'd love you to come speak this year if you would. So if you get bored, there's my 5 books so far. Be watching for the 6th one, Who Needs the Bank? And that is my contact information if anybody wants to reach out to me.
Awesome. Good stuff there, Bob. We got some questions there. Can you go back? You had a slide there on your event coming up in October. Is that correct? You pull that back up there so people so have it. Yeah,
Here, I'll just put it right there.
That's perfect. That's exactly it. Take a shot of that. I wanted to make sure that because I don't want to schedule next Note Camp on the same weekend as your event because we usually have one in October as well. So that's an important thing. But
gotcha. Guys,
one of the great things, Bob just provided a ton of great information to you. Highly recommend it. October 10th through the 11th, 12th, and 13th. And yes, he does donate every penny to the Make-A-Wish Foundation for it. And I've seen them do it. And it's just a great event. Lots of good stuff there. Let's dive in some questions for you. Sure. Allison asked, where can I find a list of owner finance notes? By any chance, Bob, would you?
Well, the owner finance, I don't know of a list of them. I mean, there's all kinds of websites of people that sell their notes. But actually, I do webinars every week, just as you do, Scott. And we actually I have students that are creating seller finance notes and they're looking for investors. And about half of my network, and this is why I don't really do too many examples of being a realtor, because over half my network are not real estate agents. I have several people in their 70s that are worth millions of dollars, and they actually came because they want to buy good product, and they, within the network of people. But there are a tremendous amount of deals and then these 10. We did 10 of those, the 10.0 deals that we funded in Dallas. I've done 16 of them since the 1st of February. So 8 a month. I mean, the guy's done twice ahead of schedule. He wanted to do 1 a week. We're doing 2 a week, and I'm basically just redeploying all my money. I sold $300,000 worth of my seconds to be able to cash out on the discounts I got to go in and buy on these because I'm getting busy, and it's just nice to lock your money in and just get a set it and forget it check for the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm. I can verify that. I can understand that too. Joe asked a question. He's a little confused. This goes back to your example. If a house is worth $100K and they put $15K down, how are you financing $70K and $30K and them having equity? The house is still worth $100 and they have $100K in debt.
Right. At the point they purchased the home, there's no equity. If you look at what they're paying right now in rent, they're getting nothing. They can't write off anything in their taxes. They don't get any equity. They get no appreciation. They basically get nothing. So it will take them usually between a year and a half to recover the $15,000 premium that they paid. And from that point forward, they're ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. But they're never upside down because they put as much down as they currently had. And most people, the big carrot to people, if you think about it, Scott, they haven't sold a car on sale price for 30 years. It's like, how much is your monthly payment? So could you use an extra $200 a month? I mean, that's like candy. I mean, people jump on that. And the buyers are the easiest piece. I mean, it's unbelievable. And this was honestly, when I first started doing this back, 6-7 years ago, I had to get it through my own head. How can I get a buyer to pay more than they can go to Zillow, and Zillow tells them this house is only worth that? How can I get them to pay more? And you're giving them something no one else will let them have, which is home ownership. That is still the American dream.
That's so true. When you start figuring out dreams are great, plus they're saving out their money. Now they're putting those, they have the write-off capabilities, tax consequences that work in their favor in a positive way. There's a lot of great stuff going into the aspect of offering up owner financing for them. It's a lot of intangibles that maybe you don't really see immediately right there hitting your face. It's the longer term play when you come, especially April 17th or April 15th, and the other things that they're actually planting a rose bush that's going to be their rose bush, not something that's going to get, they got to pull up every year when they move or their rent rate goes up and stuff like that. So that's the thing to keep in mind too.
And also, Scott, I had one of the very first notes I funded to an owner occupant back in 2012, and it paid out last summer, and they were 1 month short of 5 years paying on that note. So the buyer paid a premium, $15,000 more than the market currently said that home was worth. I had a $30,000 second on that property. They paid $220.13 a year on that second. I made over $13,000 in payments on that second. When it came time to pay up, they had paid off $1,479 worth of principal. So then you're saying, well, gee, then how did they get ahead? They walked out of closing with $32,000 in their pocket because that was the equity that the house gained. And they were able to, now that same guy bought a bigger house, and he owns 2 rental houses, and I financed all of them. I've done every loan for him. He's self-employed. He's an air conditioner mechanic, and he has 2 guys driving around in trucks now. He was able to start that business in the first house that I sold him. So you want to talk about changing people's life by charging a premium? That definitely did it.
That's definitely the truth there. Question for you. They want to know if you would be willing to upload your slides to Basecamp so they can take a look at your slides again.
Sure.
Okay. And then how do people get on your webinars that you have every week?
Actually, if you would send an email, I give anybody that wants to look at them. It's a member site, but I give a couple of free looks to anybody. So if you just send an email to bob@nocarry.com, I'll add you to the next couple of webinars.
Okay, awesome. And then Bob asked a question, how do you handle Dodd-Frank?
Dodd-Frank, everybody says, well, how do you get around Dodd-Frank? And I said, well, I don't go around Dodd-Frank. I go through Dodd-Frank, right? So first of all, Dodd-Frank looks at who originates the notes. And by the way, the Cellar Finance Coalition is working, and we have a bill on the floor that should come to a vote this year. We already have 23 congressmen and women that are going to vote. The current limit on the number of seller finance transactions is 3 per year. We have a note on the House floor, and I flew out to Washington, D.C. last year, and I got to meet with all 9 Arizona congressmen and women in McCain's office and Flake's office. But the note or the bill is going to change the number that you can do in a year from 3 a year to 2 a month. So it was very cleverly written, but basically it'd be 24 a year that you could finance. But the thing is I haven't financed a one ever because I buy those notes from the seller of the home. And basically I didn't create them. I'm buying that from the owner that doesn't want to carry. And almost every seller you talk to is going to knee-jerk reaction. In their head, they believe that buyer is a deadbeat that doesn't pay their cable bill on time. And I say, no, these are self-employed business owners. These are the hardest working people in the country. That's who you're lending to, but they don't want to lend. And you can just snuff out every objection in the world by saying, oh, well, what if I found someone to finance it for you? And then that's fine. Well, that's how you get the notes, is you're actually buying them from the person who generates them. That will be the only note they generate in their life, not just this year. So every one of them is perfectly acceptable to Dodd-Frank.
You're right. Good stuff. We got a question from Bill. Bill asks, it says, great presentation. How exactly does having a first and second mortgage instead of a first only make the investment safer? The amount financed is the same. I can answer that real fast. As an ex-mortgage broker, if you have a 70% first and a 30% second, that 70%, somebody wants to get refinanced out in 12 or 24 months, it's very, very attractive to a bank to finance out a 70%. note first lien on a refi, especially if they've been paying on time for 12 or 24 months straight. That's very attractive and pretty easy to do. You keep the second there, so perfect for cash flow. If you were to try to get it refinanced, you'd have to take a haircut if you did a whole 100% first lien. You don't want to do that. Breaking it up first and second gives you a lot of flexibility and still maximize your profit. Do you agree to that, Bob?
I do, and also something that may not be too obvious, but basically because you needed $100,000 to purchase that home, the buyer brought in 15 of it, so you only had to buy that second for $15,000, even though it's a $30,000 note. So you got a 50% discount. So your loan to value on that note, on both notes, combined loan to value is 85%. Mm-hmm. Well, that is better than any FHA loan, VA loan, USDA loan, conventional loan. I mean, that is one of the most secure loans in the country. And as a matter of fact, I would wager to say that not only is the first at 70%, by far the most secure loan in the country, in my mind, the second is the second most secure loan because it has more skin in the game down payment than any other bank loan out there.
Exactly. Allison asks, how can we partner with him where we are on the boots on the ground?
Send me an email. I look at deals every week, and I've got a network of people that are constantly looking for deals. And one of the things we did at our conference last year, in the first break of the first day, we had gone to Home Depot and bought a 4x8, two 4x8 sheets of masonite, ripped them in half so we had 4x4 panels. We put hinges on them, and we made a big box, and we set it up on chairs, and that was our deal board. We had a 4-sided deal board, and everybody at the conference had an envelope that they had a little puzzle piece in, and there was 4 pieces to the puzzle, and everyone was a different color. You had to wander around the room. We had 125 people come last year. You had to wander around the room and find the 3 other people that had your color piece, and then each person had to write the other person's deal cards. Because a lot of times your investment so well, you forget some very important details when you're putting up the information. So you had to interview each other, and it just started commerce. I'm telling you, there were deals funded that before lunch that day, fix and flip projects, and they're still, I brought in all of my hard money lenders that have been lending to me for over 10 years, and people couldn't believe it. Why would you bring your money people in and share them with this whole group? And it's like, because you have the belief that there's only so much money, and I know that money is unlimited. There's an obscene amount of money. There's $13 trillion sitting in cash in banks in this country. 1/3 of all the IRA deposits, you can ask Quincy Long at Quest IRA, 1/3 of all the IRA deposits are sitting in cash. There's so much money out there. All you got to do is show people how they can benefit from them and keep them in a very secure position.
Yeah, well, I spoke at the $1 trillion mixer recently for Quest, and Rebecca was telling me Quest has $270 million in 0% accounts, in cash accounts.
Yep.
Sitting there.
Yep.
And that's a lot. If either they got over 14,000 clients across the country, that's a lot of cash sitting out there waiting for somebody to talk to them. You all right?
Waiting for a good deal, right?
Amen. Wait for the good deal. Question here. Bill asks, are you concerned at all with the changes in tax law, increase in standard deduction? This might decrease the number of people who itemize. Probably not the end of the world, though. Still may benefits.
I don't worry about that. The people that are worried, and I don't know, I have a friend in Connecticut, and she's very concerned about the higher priced homes, $1 million+ homes, because of in Connecticut, a home over $1 million or right at $1 million would have over $30,000 a year of property tax. They just lost 2/3 of that deduction. In Arizona, $1 million home is about $10,000 in tax, so it's much less. And I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but if you look at the election map and who voted for what, it seems like all the places that didn't vote for the president are the ones that are getting hit the hardest with the property tax thing. And I'm not alienating. I'm just citing an observation.
Yeah, I know, right? I would agree with that as well. Look, the idea, you guys, it comes down to very, very simple. You've got people that aren't making any money at all, and their cost of not making money is hurting them dramatically. All right. What Bob just outlined, a great way to help them get the velocity of capital working in their favor. The longer that money sits in the sidelines, not making anything, and the more it hurts them. And that's why this makes so much sense. Working with retirees, working with people that, hey, they want to sell their house, but they can't always do with it. And they need somebody to be a problem solver. And if you can go in and solve people's problems and put money in their pocket and help them get out of a bad situation, you're going to make money. And as Bob's always said, there's a lot of motivated people out there looking for somebody to help them get financing, looking for somebody to offer up a house. And the Hispanic market you talked about is one of the top 5 emerging markets this century, this decade as well. So those people always say, as an ex-banker who worked in South Austin, big Hispanic market, they're always looking for financing. And they will always pay you first before they pay anybody else, because they may have 2 or 3 families living in that same house, but they'll take care of it, pay it on time, because that's their La Casa. All right?
Right.
Good stuff. So, guys, once again, you drop an email to bob@notecarry.com. It's bob@notecarry.com, or drop him a phone call there. I will tell you this, he travels quite a bit, so it's probably best to text Bob, because that's actually how we initiated via Facebook messaging and text back and forth, because we were traveling, which is great. Good stuff. Any other questions for Bob before we let him go back to the other conference he's at NIS? Any other questions before we let him go for the day? Got one more question pop up here. Where do you find retirees? Allison asks.
Well, it's really funny. Money comes with trust, and you're surrounded with people that that trust you. And so basically that's a very good question. And something that I learned is you do not chase money. Money chases you, right? So the best thing you can do is actually position yourself by someone who you believe you would like to have as a lending partner, and just simply ask them this question. I mean, the highest compliment you can receive from someone is to be asked for advice. So you just say, hey, I've got a little bit of cash. What is the best investment that you have? And almost every time, if you just zip your lip right there and start listening, they're going to just start complaining about the bank. Oh my God, the bank's paying me 0.2, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, never mind. I've got notes that are paying me 7 to 10, and then just walk away. And when you walk away, they go, wait, what's a note? And could I do that? I mean, and that's where the power of the conversation changes, and the money starts chasing you, because you have a better opportunity. And this is not something you chase. You don't push. You plant seeds. It's like a garden. You don't go out and put seeds in and come out in the afternoon and expect to pick cucumbers. I mean, basically, you just plant seeds every single day, and some grow up really fast, and some want to fund right away. I've got seeds coming up right now that I planted 5 years ago. Hey, are you still doing that note stuff? Because I'm just really not satisfied with what I'm earning, and I'm seeing myself spending more money than I see an end in sight, because I'm eating my capital, and they come back. So just every day, emote what you do.
Exactly. I couldn't say it any better than that. All right, guys. Bob, once again, thank you so much for coming and spending time with us at Note C.A.M.P 5.0 here on your Saturday. I know that you're juggling things, but thank you so much for being a part of it. Great presentation. Love it.
Thank you.
We'll be talking some more next week. How's that sound? Are you going to be back in Phoenix?
Okay, sounds great.
Monday or Tuesday?
Yeah, I'll be back actually, I'm flying to Tucson tomorrow night, Sunday night. I'll be back home.
All right, cool.
I'll be home all the rest of the month till Paper Source. So
there you go. Good stuff. Yeah, he'll be at Paper Source at the end of the month. That's right. So if you guys want a chance to meet him in person, he'll be out there in Las Vegas at the Tuscany with oh my God, Bill
Mancaro.
Yeah, I went blank there for a second. So, all right, guys. Well, hey, that's going to wrap it up for this session. Thank you again, Bob, for being a part of that. Guys, there's his phone number. There's his email. Reach out to him. He'll get you taken care of. We're going to take a quick 15-minute break, and then we'll be back with our next session. Thanks, Bob.
All right. Thank you, Scott. You bet.